I've been playing inside of this particular world for over 2 years at this point. And when looking at all the progress I've done, all I could say is, that's it? 2 years has gotten me, what, 5 separate structures, another portal, and that's pretty much about it. Okay, good, granted, we did get a whole bunch of shulker shells the other day, but still, it's kind of sad when you really think about it. But today, that all changes. Because what I plan on doing today is actually transforming this entire tiny area of spawn and making it into an absolutely massive city and landscape that all matches in with the theme and everything like that. And when I say massive, I mean massive for this particular style and size of world. But I still think it'll turn out well in the end. So to begin, I made some additions to the barn by adding in a wagon on the side as well as some fences around the outside, as well as chopping down quite a few trees for the space we need. And the wagon's design isn't anything too special, but it really fits in with the theme and the ideas we're going with right here. Oh, but we are just getting started right now. And a lot of what I'm building inside the spawn town is something that you would traditionally expect to see inside of an old style town, such as maybe this house which I'm building right here, which I am considering gifting to my one cat, which still doesn't have a name yet, or this one blacksmith which I'm building right next to it, which the idea for this building was I wanted it to be pretty open and pretty narrow and everything like that, just to make it truly feel like an old style of blacksmith. And again, just adding in these 2 separate structures already makes this spawn town feel so much bigger than what it was. But before we worry about adding any more of the buildings, we should probably worry about trying to add in a little bit more of this street. And my idea for the path is I wanted to transition from the path block / wood street over to just completely made out of stone blocks. Because I think the paths around here work pretty well as is, but I think the further in you go inside of like the main town, you should have more, I guess, built up and official pathing such as what we see right here. So the next 3 structures have some pretty interesting designs, but 2 out of 3 of these buildings have absolutely no purpose to them whatsoever. Such as this one, which is set on top of a cobblestone flooring. It also has 2 different types of roofs. The one building that does have a purpose is a mayor's office, which I'm building right here. I'm considering building a town hall eventually in the future, but I think for now a mayor's office can be its own separate thing. But at least that last building as a mayor's office was at least some use compared to this building which I'm constructing right now. And I had some ideas as to what I could do for this one particular building, but none of them ever actually stuck. And keep in mind, this isn't going to be the last time I build a building without a use. So in case you have any ideas for purposeless builds, such as this one and this one right here, then I'm open to suggestions. But those that do have purposes actually do have some pretty decent interiors, such as this mirror office, as well as a nice little lounge up here with some roof access. Oh, also my no-name cat's house actually has a pretty decent interior too. But before our next builds, we're going to have to work on getting some wool, or at the very least coming back to the sheep to get more wool. And we're going to need almost every single different type of color of wool, which you will see why shortly and later in this video. And while we work on gathering wool, we might as well work on our next structure, which is one of the bigger ones I'm actually building today. Because this one technically has 3 separate parts to it. The first one being this entirely stone one made out of cobblestone and andesite, which is connected onto this fairly decently tall build, which typically most of the building isn't anything too special. But what I really like about it is actually the way the roof actually connects up to it. And what I'm essentially doing is I'm recreating it on the other side with just a few minor differences, such as maybe windows down below and things like that. And the way I'm connecting it is actually with this one tiny little bridge, which, if I'm honest, is my least favorite part of the entire build right here. Because my original idea for the bridge was I kind of wanted it to have a little bit more of an arch to it, but because of the doors and things like that around the area, I really couldn't do that. But I think for now it works, but I do want to maybe go back to it eventually. Oh, by the way, this structure is also one that has no purpose, but I did do what I can on the inside to at least make it feel like, you know, an official build with like staircases, with roofs, with obviously access to the bridge and things like that on either side. But even though plenty of structures I'm building don't have much purpose right now, there's at least a few, such as this one I'm building right here, which is actually going to be a 2-story building, which will become very apparent as to what it is, as we have a pretty good look at it from the outside and on the inside, because down here we actually have 2 seats down here, or 2 tables down here, and upstairs we have quite a few number of seats down here, as well as a pub over here. And surprise, surprise, I was trying to make a pub. Hopefully this next build is just a little bit more obvious, because across the street from the pub I'm constructing another house, and I know I could make many of these purposeless builds into houses, but I think for me personally they get just a little bit boring. But I think every now and then I can make one of these buildings into homes. And at the end of this one particular street, I'm constructing a clock tower, and I'm gonna be honest, I love the design, I love the textures, I love everything about the clock, but I just think it's just a little bit too gray in my own opinion, so I'm almost certainly going to be going back to this one build eventually. But I could leave it for now and work on the streets around here, as well as adding in just a small little statue in the center of this one street right here. And now after all that, there's quite a lot to actually uncover from what we've done in this one singular area right here. First off, coming back to this one singular house, which, yes, if you look at it, it is pretty much entirely 100% symmetrical, but also, hello. Wasn't expecting to have someone actually be inside this house, but okay. But yeah, the design, the detail, I tried doing literally as much as I can, though I still think there's probably more to go here. And can you see what I mean with this one clock tower? Like, it is extraordinarily gray, but yeah, the inside is even more gray because there is no inside yet. There is no inside that I actually designed yet, but you know what? We can worry about that later for the clock tower, as we are going to have to go back to this eventually to remove just a little bit of the gray areas. And when looking at this one place without this one centerpiece, I thought to myself, wow, this is a very, very open spot. Probably should put something in the center just to make it feel a little less like that. And honestly, now that I think about it, those the deep slate kind of looks a little out of place, so might want to try putting in a little bit more deep slate around here. I guess one way of doing that is by adding a little bit of deep slate to some street lamps around the place. Okay, that actually helps out quite a bit, and I'm sure there's several other different types of decorations we could do around the entire town, but you know what? I think for now, we'll worry about the big stuff right now. And when I say big stuff, what I really mean is this tiny bridge leading across this pretty thin river. But you know what? Even though it's a pretty small bridge, it's still a pretty good looking one. And I haven't designed any structures or anything like that on this side yet, but I do eventually want to bring the town over to this side of the river. But there's one thing that I did kind of want to do today, but I think I'll have to just put it off for later, and that is make a pretty big mine entrance down here. My original plan was I was going to build like a pretty decent looking, you know, mining expedition area down here for the new underground and things like that, but I think the design I have right now just doesn't really look that good. But much like a lot of things we're working on today, we'll come back to it later, because we still have plenty of other different types of things we want to construct today inside of this video. And I doubt I have enough wool to build the next thing I want to construct, but I think I still want to at least start it. Even though I'm not going to probably finish it, I still want to at least get it started. So for this next part of the tower, we're going to want to lay out quite a decent amount of this stone pathing all over the place, as well as leaving quite a number of open gaps around the place, because I want to turn this area into an actual marketplace. And the design of the market stands are all exactly the same. The only difference is the fact that each and every one of them is going to be using a different type of wool color, so we're going to have about 16 different market stands at the very end. And if you recognize this design, that's probably because you follow me on Instagram, where I post builds every now and then. And if you want to follow me on Instagram, where I post silly builds every now and then link is down below in the description. Give me a follow. No pressure though. I built this market stand up literally as much as I physically can, with all the wool and wood as much as I possibly can, and yeah, even though it's not completely done, you get at least a rough idea as to what this will eventually look like. Also, yes, every single one of these market stands has like nothing inside of it yet. That will change eventually. Probably want to get more wool. But right now, there's one more thing I'd like to start working on today. And the thing I'm actually going to be working on here is actually going to be a train station. And much like any other types of train station, I want it to feel like as open as it could possibly be, having a pretty decently open doorway and having it feel very, very big on the inside and pretty big on the outside too. And of course, you can't have a train station without having some tracks connected onto it. And yeah, again, as is tradition with the rest of the town, I am making it pretty wooden and pretty sturdy, as to be honest, you would probably expect by now with the amount of things I built out of wood and things like that. And if I'm honest, with the rest of the things we actually built today, I at least thought in the back of my head that, yeah, it's possible that we could actually get this thing done. I had no doubt that I was not even going to come close to finishing this train station yet. But you know what? I think I could at least give a general idea as to what I was going for. And yeah, here's the inside, fairly decently open, as I've already explained. I think like there's certain things in here that I could probably add onto it, such as maybe lack of floating crafting tables and maybe just other details around the place. The thing that's actually in need of lots and lots more work is actually going to be the track itself. And if I just ride along it, you might get a general idea as to what we're going with here. And yeah, If you can't tell, this isn't the fastest mode of transport in the world. I mean, I know elytras and things like that are much quicker, but I still like the gentle stroll of going from one place to another on this train track. And if you didn't notice, my plan is that on these flat tracks where the wood actually connects onto the ground, I'm going to be adding some gravel right here. Any place that it's going to be hanging over, I'm going to be building some stilts like these. And looking at it from the sky, you could tell that, yeah, it's barely gone anywhere in terms of this train track, but I do plan on having it go on for hundreds and hundreds of blocks in this direction, until it eventually links up to just right around over here, right next to, this behemoth of a savanna plateau, or what used to be behemoth of a savanna plateau, because my original idea for over here was I was actually going to build, like, a pretty decent sized base over here, and I think, like, I don't necessarily want to do that anymore. What I would instead want to do is actually create another city over here, but in a completely different type of style in this one singular area. So instead of like a medieval style town, which we were doing at spawn, maybe it's a suburban city, or maybe it's a futuristic city. I don't know yet. I don't know the theme yet, but we can brainstorm and figure things out later. And if you have any ideas for a particular city themes that you would like to see me construct, then leave it down below, and anyone I like, I will construct some things up and then eventually build them up. But honestly, if you compare the beginning of this video's world to the end of this video's world, you can tell that there has been so much work done to this one singular spawn area of the world, and I am so incredibly proud as to what we've actually managed to do. And as soon as I build up more structures and things like that planned out, then I will of course build up more things over here, as well as the new city we will build up eventually. But for now, thanks for watching, and I'll see you all. Hold on a minute. There's a book and quill over there. And honestly, I'm someone who never makes books and quills, especially for like a single player world. So let's see what this is about. Get to Victoria when you can. I have an important message to give you. Bane,